This is big breaking news. A massive explosion has just hit 60 miles outside of Nashville, Tennessee, at a major U.S. weapons manufacturer for the U.S. military. Some people have even speculated online that this is potentially sabotage due to fail-safes not being activated. Multiple people have sadly lost their lives, and this is actually similar to things that we're seeing going on overseas right now. Okay, we actually just saw a Russian weapons manufacturer that produces propulsion systems for nuclear weapons actually being targeted just earlier this week. And now a US based weapons manufacturer is being hit. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can actually see some of the damage that happened and some of the before and after pictures. This happened at quote Accurate Energetic Systems in Bucksnort, Tennessee. I've been to Bucksnort, I've been to Dixon, Tennessee. This is right outside of Dixon and 60 miles west of Nashville, right? This is very rural, and this is shocking for people. Okay, they were reporting that they could feel the explosion all the way in Nashville. Okay, and you can see this has been reduced to just a pile of ash. There's multiple casualties and lots of people missing as well too that could potentially show up as casualties. All right, you can see here it says deaths and people unaccounted for after quote devastating blast at military explosives company in Tennessee. You can see here this is coming out of a local affiliate, and you can see this video. This is some aerial footage from the Sky 5 helicopter in Tennessee, and you can see it's just a pile of rubble. This wasn't just like a fire or a contained explosion to some area. This looks like the entire factory was destroyed. Okay, all the cars, all the buildings are gone and flattened. And this seems like a major failure. Okay, these weapons factories and bomb factories essentially typically have multiple layers of fail safes to prevent anything like this happening. Okay, if something gets out of control, they can typically shut things down quickly, shut off production quickly, activate things like ventilation. Okay, there's multiple different fail safes that they have to stop this, and for some reason none of them worked, and the whole building is completely destroyed. Okay, and this is a hit to our US military as well too. All right, we're going to get into that in just a second, some of the details on what exactly this factory produced. But you can see here it says it's not clear what caused the explosion. At around 7:45 Central Time, the blast sent plumes of smoke into the air and shook homes miles away. Quote, it was a very devastating blast, the Humphreys County Sheriff Chris Davis said. David Stewart with Hickman County Emergency Services said the officials could not verify, quote, the extent of damages or injuries in a phone call earlier this morning. Here's what we know as first responders searched the rubble for missing people and try to determine what caused the explosion. It says multiple agencies have responded to the scene and are working to assess and contain the fire, but are currently holding back from the immediate area due to concerns over secondary explosions, the agency said. So they're worried this isn't done. This is a literal weapons factory, and there could be lots of explosives and explosive material in the area now, in the surrounding areas, and it could easily be ignited and explode again. All right, and just really quick too, this is like very similar to what happened in Russia. Okay, so Russia's been getting their oil depots hit by these Ukrainian drones, and Ukraine's even been claiming some of these attacks. Okay, and they've also just had a weapons factory hit as well too in Russia. Okay, so I'm not saying these are related, but this is a very similar scene to what we see in literal war zones between Russia and Ukraine. We see these oil depots blow up in the US and these factories exploding all the time. Just last week, a Chevron oil refinery in southern Los Angeles exploded, which accounts for 20% of all the southern California oil, and 40% of all jet fuel for LAX. Okay, so I'm not saying these things are intentional, but potentially they are. Here's another video you can see coming out of Bucksnort, and the building is just vaporized. It's just gone. There's nothing left there. And pretty shocking and devastating and sad for the people here. I will be shocked if there's any survivors here. Okay, the building just completely exploded and obliterated, and it would be very hard for humans to withstand that impact. If a brick building, like you can see it here, it's mostly made out of brick and metal, and it has windows, things like that, but this is like the main front office building. If it's completely blown to smithereens, it's not very hopeful for people on the ground there. So very sad. Pray for the families there. And you can see here that they are delaying searches because they're worried there's going to be more explosions. All right, they haven't shared any official numbers on the amount of casualties or people missing because they're still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. They probably don't even know, and they're trying to contact families too, trying to see who was even at work today, who is supposed to be in, who's supposed to be out, who is where. They're probably starting from ground zero because there's most likely not even any survivors. So they're going to have to figure out who was even there that day. All right, let's listen to the sheriff really quick.
We are trying to be mindful of families and that situation. We do have some folks, we can confirm that we do have some that are deceased. But we're going to go back and, like I say, talk to these families, notify these families, and let these families know what's going on.
So you can see a sheriff's, you can tell he has a heavy heart. All right, this is devastating. This is something, you just don't expect to happen, especially out here in these rural areas. I'm sure people just didn't expect this. And they are military contractors with the Navy and the Air Force, I believe. You can see here it says a company, Accurate Energetic Systems LLC, is located about an hour southwest of Nashville, Tennessee, on the Hickman and Humphreys County line. The Humphreys County Sheriff told CNN. Public records show that the company sold numerous types of weapons to the U.S. military, including dynamite, landmines, and explosive powder for large caliber shells. The contracts were awarded largely by the Army and the Navy. All right, so I misspoke. I said the Air Force, I think, but it was the Army and Navy mostly. Accurate Energetic Systems sells explosive products for a wide variety of purposes, ranging from structural demolition to strategic breaching operations, according to the website. Some of the products listed for sale are designed by the Department of Defense and approved for use for foreign military units, police forces, and commercial customers. The manufacturing plant sits on 1,300 acres in Bucksnort, Tennessee, an unincorporated rural community approximately 60 miles southwest of Nashville. There are 8 buildings on the plant that manufacture, store, and research explosives for customers beyond just the military, including aerospace, oil, and other commercial demolition industries. Okay, so this could affect lots of different industries. This could affect mining. This could affect, oil exploration. Things like this could be affected because they use explosives as well too. These controlled detonations, and they produce for them. All right, and they're saying here's a video, shows a look at the plant from 2014. It also says here the company uses the sprawling campus to test explosives, according to its website, measuring the velocity of explosions as well as their impact on surrounding areas under varying environmental conditions. The website says that facilities can safely accommodate explosives with up to 35 pounds of, quote, net explosive weight, and conducts daily testing. The company's website noted, quote, it rigorously adheres to stringent security standards of Defense Department security and safety protocols. All right, so, and it's actually called the Department of War now, but it's like this, there's a lag, so they still I'm sure the contracts and everything that they're under still say Department of Defense. All right, so pretty serious what's going on. And this could have ramifications for our military, for any type of international conflict that is currently happening or that is brewing in the background. This is a national security threat, and this even could be potential sabotage or a potential intentional hit from somewhere or someone. Okay, I'm not saying it is, but we have to think of this possibility when it's a U.S. military weapons manufacturer just completely obliterated like this. This is extremely rare for this to happen, and maybe there was somebody or something that caused this. Okay, it most likely wasn't somebody on the inside, because now they are blown up too. Maybe it was and they weren't there. Maybe it was a drone. Who knows? Maybe there was just a drone flying around nobody saw out here. It's very rural. They're on 1,300 isolated acres. Nobody would even notice us. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just thinking of possibilities. It could have been some type of internal manufacturing failure as well too, but it seems very, very low. This is one of the top manufacturing facilities in the United States for these types of explosives, and it seems very low probability that they would make a mistake this large that would cause the entire facility to be destroyed and everyone is just, not making it. So that is a possibility, but maybe it was a drone. Okay, look at these drone attacks that keep happening in Russia. Okay, and there's actually major gas shortages in Russia as well too. Around 20% of the oil refining capacity in Russia has been taken offline. This has been causing gas prices to spike. Certain regions that are closest to the refineries that got hit are experiencing shortages. Okay, some places are even selling like fake gas. I saw reports and I saw people pumping out fake gas out of their car that was all coagulated, because people are just taking advantage of the situation too. Okay, let me show you guys this weapons factory that was hit in Russia as well. You guys can see here it says Ukraine claims drone strikes on Russian ammo plant, oil terminal. You can see here it says Ukraine claims drone strike on Russian ammo plant, oil terminal, and weapons depot. And it says the Ukrainian military claims its long-range drones have hit key Russian targets. And these are military targets. These are key manufacturing targets for the Russian military. You can see here it says the Ukrainian General Staff said it struck in Sverdlov, a ammunition plant there, in the Novgorod region of western Russia overnight, causing multiple explosions and a fire. It said the plant supplies Russian forces with aviation and artillery ordnance, aviation bombs, and anti-aircraft and anti-tank munitions. Also, Ukrainian drones hit a oil terminal in Crimea, the largest one there, starting a blaze. All right, so this is what we've been seeing overseas in Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine just got hit extremely hard last night as well too. There are blackouts nationwide, especially in the capital city Kyiv, and they launched this attack overnight. Russia did, probably in response to these drone attacks that we've seen on Russian critical infrastructure over the past week, and they've even been actively claiming these attacks. All right, so we could potentially see similar things inside the United States. I'm not saying that's what this is, but it's really, and some of these attacks actually were deep inside Russia. Some of these oil depots were, far, far away from Ukraine, nowhere near Ukraine. deep into Russia, right? Almost to like eastern Russia, in the middle of Russia, closer to eastern Russia than western Russia. Okay, some of these attacks were happening. And it just goes to show that even in an active war zone where military forces are on high alert, there's military checkpoints, all these things are happening, they are still able to sneak in these drones, because what they do for these long range attacks is they bring them in with trucks or vans or semi trucks, and then they launch the drones from some type of vehicle. Okay, and then the drones are attached a lot of times to fiber optic cables to these vehicles from the launch point. Okay, and it's all done remotely too. Like, they don't even have to be near it. They just have to get a driver to drive the truck into the region. Okay, and this could even be an unsuspecting driver. It could just be like a truck driver bringing in a load, and he doesn't know that it's filled with drones in the back. And they remotely activate the drone attack. Okay, so that's the level that we are dealing with here. And who's to say these things aren't happening in the United States, especially over the past 4 years when the country was wide open. Okay, we don't know exactly what was brought into the country. And the US is huge. So there's a lot of room and space for these things to potentially be hiding. And it would only take one drone, potentially, maybe a few drones loaded with explosives to cause some type of damage, right? Like we saw at this weapons manufacturing plant. It might not even take that many. And they might go unnoticed and undetected in these rural areas where there's just not a lot of people and there's not a lot of, cameras or surveillance going on, which is good in some sense. But then things like this can easily slip through the cracks and happen as well too, right? So let's hope we can get to the bottom of this weapons plant exploding. It's very suspicious, right? Very, very suspicious. And it's going to be hard to believe that they just write it off as something normal. So hopefully they get to the bottom of this. But a lot of times with these things, we really don't. Okay. I mean, look at all these disasters we've seen. I mean, even just things like East Palestine, Ohio, train derailment, and then they exploded this vinyl chloride. Okay, these trains were filled with vinyl chloride, and they just lit it on fire and exploded the trains and turned it into a wasteland, some of these areas, right? And there's really been there's been no recourse for the people that live there. It's just kind of been swept under the rug. And there's been dozens of these stories that have happened just in the past few years. Okay, I've been documenting all of them, and 90% of them have been swept under the rug, and you don't even hear about it again unless it's brought up on a channel like mine. Okay, so make sure you guys are prepared, staying safe, staying ready, keep your head on a swivel, have some preps, have some food, have maybe some type of generator, gas generator, solar generator. They have small ones now, they're pretty cheap. A water filter, some canned food, things like the simple things, maybe a satellite internet like a Starlink mini dish or a sat phone, something along these lines. Just have a few backups, all right? It doesn't take, you don't have to be, Grizzly Adams, Grizzly Man, living out, roughing it in your tent, eating berries, okay? To bug out, if something happens. But even if you just have a few weeks worth of food, 20-pound bag of rice, okay? It's not that expensive. Then you're going to be ahead of the game, all right? And you're not going to be in a desperate situation if something bad happens near you. You won't be as tempted to go out, search for food, search for water, search for things like that because you already have it, and risk your life, put yourself in danger potentially if there are other people out there looking for these things or looking to take these things from you in some type of emergency. So hope you guys are staying safe. Hope you guys are staying prepared. Hope you have big blessings for your life and your family. And I hope you have a big old blessed day.